Well, this massive ovation right now at Barclays Center is for that young woman, Coco Gauff, coming off her French Open win. The entire arena standing when they just showed her on the scoreboard here at Barclays Center.
Coco Gauff just experienced something that made every doubter and hater absolutely lose their minds. After winning the French Open, France decided to roll out the red carpet in ways that had people's jaws on the floor. We're talking treatment that most athletes only dream about. The kind that makes you realize she's not just another champion, she's the champion. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the most extra way you've ever celebrated an achievement? Because what France did for Coco might have you rethinking your celebration game. Let's talk about what happens when you win one of the most prestigious tennis tournaments in the world at 21 years old. Most people get a trophy, some prize money, maybe a nice dinner, and they call it a day. But Coco Gauff? Oh no. France said, "We're going to treat this young woman like absolute royalty, and everyone who doubted her can watch and weep."
C'est le match Coq. Deux manches 6-7, 6-2, 6-4.
First off, the immediate aftermath of her victory was already next level. The French crowd absolutely erupted when she won. We're talking standing ovations that lasted so long you'd think she'd just saved the country from a natural disaster. The French tennis fans, who are notoriously hard to please and have seen every legend walk through Roland Garros, were losing their minds over this 21-year-old American. But here's where it gets really interesting. The French media didn't just cover her win like it was another sports story. They treated her like she was the second coming of Serena Williams, mixed with a dash of cultural icon. Major French publications were running full-spread features. Fashion magazines were calling. The same country that gave us haute couture and treat style like a religion was now claiming Coco as one of their own. And can we talk about the trophy presentation? Because that alone was something special. The way the French Tennis Federation officials were treating her, you'd think she'd been playing for France her whole career. The reverence, the respect, the genuine excitement on their faces. It wasn't the usual, "Congratulations, here's your trophy. Please make this quick" energy. They were savoring the moment just as much as she was.
Whoa. Whoa. Icon into the foreground. What you call it? Icon.
Now, the haters were already having a rough time accepting that Coco won her second Grand Slam at such a young age. But watching France embrace her like this, that had to sting on a completely different level. Because it's one thing to win a tournament. It's another thing entirely to have an entire country decide you're worth celebrating in ways they reserve for the absolute elite. The French know tennis. They've hosted one of the 4 Grand Slams since 1891. They've seen Bjorn Borg, Chris Evert, Rafael Nadal dominate their clay courts. They've watched legends rise and fall on that red dirt. So when France decides someone is special, it means something. And they decided Coco Gauff is very, very special. But let's get into the specific treatment that had people's eyes turning green with envy. After her victory, Coco wasn't just shuffled off to do the standard press conferences and then sent on her way. The French pulled out all the stops. We're talking about a level of hospitality and recognition that goes way beyond what's typical for a Grand Slam winner. The French Tennis Federation arranged special celebrations that honored not just her victory but her journey. They recognized her as more than just a champion. They celebrated her as an athlete who represents the future of tennis. And when France decides to honor you, they don't do it halfway. They bring the elegance, the sophistication, and the genuine warmth that French culture is known for when they truly respect someone. What really set the haters off was seeing how the French public responded to her in the days after her win. Coco mentioned in interviews that everywhere she went in Paris, People recognized her and congratulated her. Not in the obnoxious, celebrity-stalking way, but in that classy French manner where they'd approach respectfully, express their admiration, and let her go about her day. That's the kind of treatment reserved for people who've truly captured a nation's heart. And let's be real, having France fall in love with you hits different than having just about any other country embrace you. This is a nation that prides itself on having impeccable taste in everything from wine to art to sports. They don't just throw their adoration around casually. You have to earn it. And Coco earned every bit of it with her performance on that court. The fashion world's response was particularly chef's kiss. French fashion houses were suddenly very interested in this young woman, who not only plays incredible tennis but does it with style. When you win the French Open and the fashion capital of the world starts paying attention to you beyond just your athletic performance, that's when you know you've transcended sports. That's when you've become a cultural moment. But here's what really made the haters lose sleep. Coco handled all of this attention with the same grace and maturity she showed on the court. She didn't let the extra love go to her head. She stayed humble, grateful, and focused, which somehow made the whole thing even more frustrating for people who were desperately hoping she'd mess up or show some sign of being unworthy of all this praise. The contrast between how France treated her and how some people in her own country were acting was stark. While French officials and citizens were rolling out metaphorical red carpets and treating her like tennis royalty, there were still American commentators and social media trolls trying to downplay her achievement. Meanwhile, France was like, "We don't care about your negativity. We recognize greatness when we see it." The accommodations and treatment she received in the days following her win were apparently top tier. We're talking about the kind of service and attention to detail that money usually can't buy. Because it wasn't just about luxury, though I'm sure that was nice. It was about respect. It was about a country saying, "You gave us an incredible performance and we want to make sure you know how much we appreciate it." What made this even sweeter was remembering that this was Coco's second Grand Slam she'd already won the US Open. So she knew what it felt like to win a major tournament. But even she seemed genuinely touched, and maybe even a little surprised by how France embraced her victory. That tells you something about the level of celebration they brought to the table. The French media coverage alone was something to behold. Major sports networks weren't just showing highlights, they were doing deep dives into her game, her mentality, her journey. French tennis analysts were breaking down her matches like they were studying film for a masterclass. The level of respect and serious analysis they gave her game was the kind usually reserved for established legends, not a 21-year-old just hitting her stride. And can we acknowledge that Coco was dealing with all of this while also processing the drama with Sabalenka? Like, she just won the French Open, had to handle some unexpected controversy, and was also being treated like royalty by an entire nation. The multitasking skills alone deserve recognition. But she managed all of it without breaking a sweat publicly. The haters watching all this unfold had to be experiencing some serious cognitive dissonance because they'd spent so much time and energy trying to convince themselves and others that Coco was overrated, that she'd gotten lucky with her US Open win, that she wasn't ready for this level of success. And then France collectively said, "Actually, she's incredible, and we're going to celebrate her properly." There's something particularly satisfying about watching deserving people get the recognition and treatment they've earned. Coco had put in years of work. She'd dealt with pressure and expectations since she was 15 years old. She'd handled losses, criticism, and doubt. She'd matured as a player and a person in front of the whole world, and now she was getting her flowers, literally and figuratively, from one of the most prestigious nations in tennis history. The French weren't just celebrating her win, they were celebrating her character. Because let's be honest, France has seen plenty of talented tennis players pass through Roland Garros. Talent alone doesn't get you the level of adoration Coco received. It was the combination of her skill, her grace under pressure, her sportsmanship, and her authenticity that won them over. Social media was particularly entertaining during all of this. You could watch in real time as people who'd been skeptical about Coco suddenly had to confront the reality that she was being treated like a superstar by a country that knows its tennis. The mental gymnastics people were doing to try to downplay what was happening was Olympic-level effort. Well, the French are just being nice. They'd do this for anyone who wins. Except no, they really wouldn't, and everyone knew it. The timing of all this couldn't have been more perfect either. After everything that went down with the post-match commentary and press conference drama, France's response to Coco felt almost like a collective hug from an entire nation. Like they were saying, "Don't worry about the noise, you're a champion and we see you." What's wild is that Coco didn't campaign for any of this. She didn't have a PR team orchestrating some grand celebration tour. She literally just showed up, played incredible tennis, won the tournament, and France decided on their own that she deserved the royal treatment. That's organic recognition. That's genuine respect. You can't buy that kind of authenticity. The contrast with how some previous champions were treated, or not treated, made the whole thing even more meaningful. France wasn't just going through the motions of celebrating a Grand Slam winner. They were specifically, intentionally honoring Coco Gauff as someone special. And after years of being the youngest this and the rising star that, it must have felt validating to be recognized for what she actually accomplished, rather than just for her potential. The French Tennis Federation's treatment of her extended beyond just the immediate post-tournament celebrations, too. They made it clear through their actions and statements that they consider her part of Roland Garros history now. Not just as a name on a trophy, but as someone who represents what they value in tennis: skill, grace, determination, and class. And let's talk about how this affected her preparation for Wimbledon. Instead of having to fight for respect or deal with unnecessary drama, she got to bask in the glow of a nation's appreciation for a few days before heading to the next tournament. That kind of positive energy and genuine celebration probably did more for her confidence and mental state than any amount of practice could. The haters had convinced themselves that even if Coco won, it wouldn't mean much, that people would find ways to diminish her achievement. But watching France embrace her so completely made that narrative impossible to maintain. You can't look at an entire country rolling out the red carpet for someone and still pretend they're not special. What really sealed the deal was how the French treated her compared to other international athletes who'd won major events in France. Coco wasn't just getting standard champion treatment, she was getting "you're one of ours now" treatment. The kind of acceptance and celebration that transcends nationality and sport. That's when you know someone has truly made an impact. The French public's response in the streets and restaurants and shops of Paris told its own story. This wasn't manufactured hype or corporate-sponsored promotion. These were regular people who'd watched her play, been impressed by her character, and wanted to show their appreciation. That grassroots level of respect and admiration is something you absolutely cannot fake. For everyone who'd been waiting for Coco to prove she belonged among tennis's elite, France basically said, "She's already proven it. We're just making sure she knows we noticed." And they did it with style, class, and genuine warmth that made the whole thing feel special rather than obligatory. The best part? Coco seemed to genuinely appreciate all of it without letting it inflate her ego. She remained the same grounded, thoughtful person she'd been before the win, which only made France love her more, and made the haters even more frustrated because they couldn't even point to arrogance as a flaw to criticize. So yeah, instant envy hit the haters hard as they watched Coco Gauff get treated exactly how she deserved in France. Like a champion, like royalty, like someone who'd earned every bit of recognition and celebration coming her way. And there wasn't a single thing they could say to diminish that reality. France showed us exactly how to celebrate a champion properly, and Coco Gauff soaked up every deserved moment of it. If watching people get what they've earned makes you smile, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about athletes who prove the haters wrong just by being excellent. Comment below with who you think deserves more recognition in sports.